It's our pleasure to welcome now Austin Golding Barge Line. Hey, Austin, been a while since we talked, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again.
So we wanted to have you on to talk about the Mississippi River. I mean, in your business, obviously this is something that is critical. You're constantly monitoring that. What's the status right now, and how is that affecting you?
Well, right now we're entering a low water period that's been a little unexpected. We had high water most of this year. We haven't had low water really in our expectations until now. With the most recent forecast, I can see why we're chatting, because they're expecting to get mighty low. Here in Vicksburg, we're probably looking at the first to second week of October, hitting a really low point. But really, to look at Memphis to see what's coming, we're going to hit a pretty critical low stage around September 29th, coming up here in just a few days. But over the next 30 days, we can expect this river to fall out significantly.
Okay. Well, how is that affecting business right now? How are you responding to this?
Well, the hard part is you start taking draft off barges, and I know that's going to affect a lot of farmers in Mississippi and a lot of people trying to move their cargo. The river's only so deep; you can only run so heavy, and so the hard part for a lot of people to conceptualize is what that means as far as the bottom line to a lot of people. And say a barge, just for this example, drafts 10 feet. Well, 8 feet of that cargo draft is what pays for that operation to happen that day. The last 2 feet are the profit. So you start taking 1 or 2 feet off each barge, and they're either going to charge more for the remaining 8 feet, or these people aren't going to make any money. And I think, Gerard, you and I both know what's going to happen there. So
yeah,
people are going to charge more to move less, and that's what's going to happen over the next couple months. It's not unseasonal. I mean, low water happens, and we're used to dealing with it. But I think this may catch some people off guard, being that we were limiting tow sizes and limiting transit times because of high water for most of this year. But it has really gotten dry over the last 2 months in the mid-continent, which, in a long-winded answer here, but I'm knocking on wood as I say this, but we have not had hurricanes to move through the middle of the country. And so, we've learned over the years that if you have a mild hurricane season, you're probably going to have extended low water. If you have a very active hurricane season, you're probably going to have a little bit more water in the system.
Okay. So I assume, Austin, that's because as the hurricanes move through and they dump all that rain, fills up all the rivers and streams and tributaries that feed into the river? Is that what happens?
That's exactly right, Gerard. It moves to the middle of America. Most of those things that get centered in the Gulf stall out somewhere over the Ohio Valley. And it is the Mississippi River, but the majority of the water in the lower Mississippi River comes out of the Ohio River, the vast majority. Okay. And so as you watch it, what's coming south towards us, the Ohio Valley is where to fix your focus, because the Missouri and the upper are very, very large rivers, but they pale in comparison to the amount of volume that comes out of the Ohio River. So that valley is really what we're looking at.
And so I would assume also, Austin, that for us the rainy season is this spring, of course, that when the fronts sweep through, the way the jet stream is situated over the country, and it, of course, moves north as we get into the summer. And it seems like there have been kind of less precipitation, less fronts, less storms move through the Midwest, which I assume also contributes to increasing the water levels in the Ohio dumping into the Mississippi.
No question. And we've seen that over the last 4 years running, really 5 years running, including this year, that we've seen less precip in the middle of the country. This year, though, we had a mighty strong winter and spring leading into the high water, which we needed. That allowed a little extra cargo to happen, but it has become unseasonably dry in the middle of the country, with especially low hurricane occurrence and like you said, less ordinary precip in the Midwest. We're feeling it down here.
Yeah. So do you work with your competitors or perhaps others that are in your industry that maybe you don't compete with? Do you guys talk about this and strategize and try to come up with ways to address it, dealing with, I assume in a lot of cases, the same customer base, right?
Some, and I tell you, you find out real quick if you're too conservative on some of your game plan when your customer calls you back and says, hey, Gerard said he can do it. And so you got to be real careful about how conservative you get. But, it depends on cargo. majority of our fleet is moving petroleum, gasoline, diesel,
Okay.
jet fuel, the things that go into making those components. So we are much more conservative than somebody that's moving rock or grain or other types of cargoes that are less dangerous to the environment. We have 3 rock tows. About 10% of our business is rock, and those guys are still. We send out our forecast. They're the most disappointed for sure. The oil and gas
Huh.
guys are okay with us being careful, but the rock guys like to load them up, and we can do it safely, but it is a risk management equation. How heavy do I want to run? And as you can imagine, when you have a couple million gallons of gasoline in 2 to 3 barges in your tow, and you're rubbing along the river bottom, that's
Ooh.
not a good thing.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
we like to have a little bit more freeboard, where we have at least a couple feet between the bottom of the river and the bottom of those oil and gas barges.
And so, Austin, does your company actually have instruments installed to monitor that, or do you rely on third parties for river levels, water levels?
Well, this should give everybody great confidence. We rely on the federal government to tell us what's happening and to
I was
maintain
afraid you were going to
the
say
system.
that.
But I'll tell you, I won't rip them too bad, because living over in Vicksburg, I see a lot of these folks at the grocery store or at the ball game or
Sure.
whatnot, and they're doing their damn best. They're trying.
Sure.
Their forecasts are accurate. They're getting out there hustling and dredging this river. But it's a it's the Mississippi River. It's a wild environment to try to manage. I'm always in awe that the Corps does such a good job. But they're
Yeah.
going out along with the Coast Guard and measuring channel width, channel depth, giving us updates, getting
Okay.
constant feedback from those guys around it. But internally on the boats, we have instruments, we have sounders that go off the front of the barges that give a signal back to the immediate depth. And kind of an interesting concept to think about with us. You rather that barge go aground than the boat. And so when you have that sounder that's telling you how deep it is, sometimes 1,000 feet in front of the boat, you'll have time northbound to know, oh, I'm getting in some shallow water. I better chill out. I better back
Yeah.
out and reroute. If you're coming
Right.
southbound and you can't stop, 1,000 feet is nothing for these big guys. So
Yeah.
they see it, and it's like a horror movie. They know that it's coming, and when the barges slip past the sandbar, but the boat's a little heavier than the barges, and the boat hits, the boat stops and the barges keep going.
Oh
And
man.
that's your worst nightmare. So we're probably way more advanced than previous generations on the type of communications and the type of updating we have. But I've always said I would rather have to manage high water than low water. Low water damage can be 1,000 feet in front of you and you never know it. This river changes
Okay.
every year.
Okay. What about our agricultural community, Austin? How plugged in are you to that, and are they some of your customers as well? Here in Mississippi, we rely so heavily on that.
We actually don't move any of the local agricultural stuff here. We're just oil and gas and rock. But I talk to
Okay.
these guys every day.
Sure.
I know the companies that are moving their product. I know the farmers themselves, and I tell you, they've had a rough year. They've had a really rough year. They're caught in the center of all this trade dispute. The value of the soybeans and corn and rice that they're moving out is not what it needs to be. And they've had a wonderful bounty this year. So we're moving a very healthy crop out. I think there'll be some restrictions and there'll be a little heartburn. But if this forecast holds, this is still a manageable low water river level. I'm hoping, and I have my fingers crossed as we're speaking, that the cost isn't so punitive that it hurts these farmers here any more than they already have had to go through. They've had a rough year.
Okay. Yeah, they have, and I was reading some reports this morning about that. In particular, soybeans really getting hammered, and that's a big product, of course, in the state of Mississippi, right? You're hearing the
Huge.
same about beans?
Oh, absolutely. And I hear it, at the coffee shop. I hear it at the golf course. I hear it from all my guys that I know are working really hard. They have one of their best yields they've ever had this year, and it's not worth much. And I know that they're looking at South America. They're looking at the Chinese purchases. They're looking at all this stuff that's beyond their control. And man, I know how hard they're working. I know how many family businesses we're sitting here talking about. Soybeans for sure have sunk a lot of folks this year. So we're going to try on our side to keep as aggressively operating as we can and not try to have them feel any more pain.
Yeah. Austin Golding, Barge Line. Always good to talk to you, Austin. Appreciate it, and we're hoping for the best there, man. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, Gerard. Thank you for having me.
You bet. We're coming right back in the